So good you're all here. I am here to introduce the speaker. And those of you who know by now, this is my grandfather, so I've known him he's been around longer than I have, that's for sure. He came out to Australia 3 different times, and I was working in Australia to help do some health talks there. And I remember one time he came out, he said, "Do you think I'm getting a little too old for these talks?" I said, "Grandpa, the older you are, the better it is." Because he's been teaching, I think he said he's taught at London University for 64 years, lectured there. He knows what he's talking about, and he's practiced what he's preached since he was a teenager, maybe even younger, the health message that he knows. And so he's research-based, and he's going to share some stuff with us. Today, I think it's going to be more of a lot of stories about his own life, how God's led him. But this week, come along and hear a guy that's 101, nearly 102. I told you last month he was traveling all around Europe. He still has his driver's license in California. He just renewed it. He said it's renewed. He can drive till he's 106. That's till he renews it the next time, hopefully. So anyways, I'm very glad to have you here, Grandpa. Dr. John Scharfenberg is going to speak to us today, so I invite you to enjoy him sharing with us. Thank you.
Usually I tell the children a story, but I'm not going to do that today because the whole sermon is going to be stories. You remember what Matthew 28, 18 to 20 says? Jesus comes and talks to his disciples, 11 of them this time, 11 of them only. He talks to them and he says, "Look, I want you to teach everybody what I've taught you. And then I want you to baptize them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit." Then the last verse says, "And I will be with you always until the end of the world." Now that's the part I want to stress. In my work of health education, health evangelism, I call it, in that work, I am finding one time after another where I am sure the Lord is with me. And it makes me so happy to know I'm doing the Lord's work and the Lord is with me too. I'm going to talk to you about Nathaniel Yen in Taiwan. In Taiwan, every boy has to serve at least 4 months in the military. Well, this young man had gone through Adventist Bible studies 3 times. He didn't accept it the first time. He wanted to make sure that was right. He did it again. He wanted to make sure that was right, so he did it again 3 times. He ended up marrying the girl who corrected his papers, by the way. but anyway, Nathaniel became a Christian, an Adventist. He was keeping the Sabbath. He had to go into the military. So he wanted to make sure his captain knew that he was Sabbath keeper. And he explained it to him, and the captain tried to help him. "I'll help you out. I'm going to assign you to go and buy the food for the company on Saturday. You'll go with 2 other people. When you get outside the gate, you take your Bible, go over the hill, and at the end of the Sabbath, when the sun goes down, you come back. And it'll show on the record that you went out to buy food." "Oh, no, I don't want any record to show I worked on the Sabbath." Now, we had some officials from our church out there at the time, and they thought he was a little too strict. But anyway, he didn't want any record to show he worked on the Sabbath. So he had to be reported, and they sent him to jail. His sister, by this time, had a little baby, and she had become an Adventist. She knew where he was in the prison, up on the 2nd floor. And she got below that window, and she talked to her baby. She wasn't talking to him, talking to her baby. "When you grow up, I want you to be Daniel. Be strong like Daniel." And he heard it. It was encouragement to him. But he got sick. He had malarial fever. He was so sick they thought he was going to die. So they let him come home. and report only once a week to the jail. He hadn't had a court trial or anything. I got a call from Pastor Christensen in Tainan. Can you come and help us? You're in the American military. I was a military advisor to the Taiwanese army. Now, I'll tell you how that came about. There was a Colonel Werglin, graduated from Loma Linda University. He was not a Seventh-day Adventist, but he was in charge of directing people for their second year in service, either to a U.S. place or overseas the second year to either Germany or Taiwan. I knew where he lived in Tacoma Park. So one Sunday morning, I went to his home and I said, Colonel Werglin, I speak a little Chinese. I want you to send me to China, Taiwan, not to Germany. He said, I'll take care of that. And he did. He made me a military advisor to the health department in Taiwan. So that's why I was over there. And anyway, Pastor Christian was called, can you come and help? Well, I said, I could come in the beginning of the week or the end of the week, but not in the middle. I had to be with my troops in their procedures, crossing creeks on logs and stuff. I had to be with them. Okay, he says, you better wait and come to the end because the attorney here for the military has threatened to put Yen in jail for the rest of his life. Well, I had to figure out what to do. I had a plan. I wasn't going to speak any Chinese, even though I knew some Chinese. I wasn't going to talk to any. I was going to overhear everything I could hear when I got there and see what their plans were. So I was in Taichung at the time. That was where my headquarters was, Corps 1. And this was Corps 2, where this man was having trouble. So I decided towards the end of the week, Thursday or so, I got on a train and took the train halfway down to Tainan, to Jiayi. Got off the train and inspected a Chinese Air Force hospital. It was 10 o'clock at night when we got done, and they were taking me to a hotel. I suddenly had a strong urge. You should go on tonight. You should go on tonight. So I told the men, take me to the railroad station. I'm going on tonight. 10 o'clock. Oh, no, Chinese don't travel this time of night. I knew that. But I said, I'm determined to go on tonight. So they took me to the station. I was the only one there at the station. I bought my ticket, waiting for that train to come. The train came, and the car that I was going to get onto stopped right in front of me. The steps to that car were right in front of me. Well, naturally, I got on that car, hoping not to be around much tobacco smoke. There were only 6 soldiers in there, so there was not much tobacco smoke. It was good. But I determined I wasn't going to speak Chinese. I just passed a very jolly-looking major. He looked up at me and smiled. And I said, boy, this guy looks so good. I'll sit across from him. Now, I don't know why I did that, because I wasn't going to speak Chinese. He began to ask me questions. Are you going to Tainan? In Chinese. I said, yes, in Chinese. Are you going to stay in an American hotel? I said, no, in Chinese. Are you going to stay at a Chinese hostel? I said, no, in Chinese. Are you going to stay with American missionary friends? I said, yes, all in Chinese. Now, the man knew I knew Chinese. I was answering his questions. And so I began to talk to him. Who do you think this man was? This was the district attorney coming back from Taipei, where he had seen the top attorney, to ask if he had permission to put him in jail the rest of his life. And he was told he did. So he told me the answer he got. He knew who I was. I was coming to see him. And we ran out of conversational material. But he knew we made an appointment to see each other the next day. Pastor Christensen and myself went to see him. Now, I don't know what all happened. They knew I knew Chinese. He had seen me the night before on the train. But he had to have the court case. He had to have a court trial. So they had a court case and had the trial. He hadn't done anything wrong, but he hadn't served his 4 months. He had to serve his 4 months in the military. So I had to go back in the military, serve his 4 months. Now this attorney that was threatening to put him in jail the rest of his life wanted to make sure how he was getting along out there. So he went out to see him one day, talk to his captain. His captain said he's one of the best soldiers we have, one of the best people we have. But he has a most unusual illness. He's ill every 7th day of the week. That's the Chinese way of saying we're letting him off on his Sabbath. So he was a good man. He ended up marrying the girl who corrected his papers, correspondence course. He married her. He became a minister. He took theology, and he learned English well. He took it at Andrews University in English. The man learned Japanese well. He pastored a Japanese church and a Chinese church all at the same town, same time. He knew Japanese and Chinese both. He went to Hong Kong, was in charge of our work in Hong Kong. That was the ears for what's going on in China. I flew over at that time. I stopped at Hong Kong. He and his wife met me, took me out to Chinese noodles, and I had to get back on a plane and go on my trip. But he told his staff in Hong Kong, he was in charge of the mission, he told them all about the story of how I had helped him when he was in the military. But he became an evangelist. He became a pastor of the Loma Linda University, Chinese church. He did an excellent job. He died before I got to see him again in Loma Linda because he had Alzheimer's. He didn't know anybody. But I met his son and his son's wife. And I got acquainted with them. And when I was at Loma Linda at Alumni Association meeting 2 years ago, they honored me. They honored 10 people, special scientists, and I was the last one to be honored. Here I ran up there, 100 years of age, running up to receive this little thing honoring me. The whole crowd stood up and applauded for about 10 minutes. I've never had anything like this happen before. But I was honored at that meeting for my work in health education. I was doing health education. I was teaching health education at the School of Public Health. I started teaching in internal medicine department, and then I went to the School of Public Health and taught there. And I taught maybe 64 years. I've taught there at Loma Linda. And it's been quite exciting in my work at Loma Linda, too. But this was very interesting about Brother Yen. Now, another story I want to tell you. We'll call this man's name Omer. That wasn't his name. But we're not saying what his name is. But there was a doctor over in Africa, Nairobi. His wife was a city physician in charge of the city health department. And this Dr. Wangai was in charge of the Adventist Conference Health Department, East African Division. He also went by a Muslim name. He was on the Muslim committee of the Sunnis. There were 2,000 Sunnis over there. And he explained what we believed. Now, he did it. We call our church over there Al-Hanif. That means the worshiper of the one and only true God. That's who we are. And I met two of our people over there in one of the countries overseas, and they were asking them, "Are you Christian?" "No, we're Al-Hanif, worshiper of the one and only true God." And so they let them by. They weren't Muslim. Well, Dr. Wangai thought that our health work was doing so well at bringing people into the church. He said we should have a big meeting and bring all the ministers in to see how this is done, bring all the educators in, all the medical people in, and show them how to do this. It was going to cost $40,000, salary-wise, just to bring those people in. Dr. Wangai raised it from the businesses he did business with in Nairobi. And then we had to hire a big auditorium. We got the biggest one, seated 500. Cost us $10,000 for 6 nights program. A local church member had the money and paid for it, $10,000. Dr. Wangai wanted me out there 10 days before these meetings start to take me around to different places so that people would know who I was, to get people to come to the meeting. He took me to the biggest Baptist church in town. Very interesting. The pastor had just discovered on his own from the Bible the Sabbath story. And I spoke at his church. The lights went out while I was in there. This is war times, you know, you didn't always have electricity. The lights went out. Well, the head of the light department was there, and he went to the phone and got them turned on for me again. So we had the lights. He had me talk to the Millionaires Club. In that club, you had to be a millionaire before you were 30 years of age to be a member. And I talked to these about 20-some people there, millionaires in Africa. And I talked to hospital staffs, whole staff. The place was packed, people sitting on the aisle. And I talked about 10 or 11 groups like that. I talked with all the soldiers. He had soldiers lined up, 100 of them for me to talk to. He said, "Don't say anything religiously. You let me handle that." So every time I would make a statement on hell, he translated it into an evangelistic appeal. Now, I don't know how he did it, but he did it. Well, we had that meeting. No Adventist was allowed to go unless he brought non-Adventists. The place was packed. 500 people, every seat taken. I had the first 2 nights of the program. And we had an elder person, black pastor, a TV man. And he had the next 4 nights, but he gave me part of his time to do a health talk along the way. And so we did this. 100 people signed up for Bible studies. And a Muslim young man was baptized. A Muslim. He began to preach in his mosque. And pretty soon the sheikhs in their white gowns decided this man is not teaching straight Muslim religion. We better assassinate him. So they got a young boy to stand up and revile him publicly when he was speaking. That was a signal to throw the hand grenades and kill him. The young boy stood up to speak, and his jaw got dislocated. He couldn't talk. He couldn't talk. He couldn't eat. His father thought he was going to die. So the father brought him to this Muslim who had been baptized and had him pray for him. His jaw flipped back in place. But this Muslim boy who was baptized, his father got him in his father's tent on the floor with a knife to kill him. That's what they do to those who are converted. His two brothers came in, saw him on the floor with dad with a knife over him, and the brothers took the knife from the father and said, "We can't kill one of our own. We'll just gouge out his eyes so he can't read the scripture." Boom! One eye pops out. He screamed, got up and got away. The Adventists took him in. He's been in charge of our Muslim Bible Correspondence School ever since that day. And he knew how to work for the Muslims. It's been just tremendous. Now tell me, that urge to go on that night on the train, when the car stopped right in front of me, the steps, do you think that was the Lord's doing? This boy, who was to revile this Muslim that was converted, his jaw got dislocated. Was that incidental? I'll tell you, I've had one experience after another, hundreds of these that are happening. When we work for the Lord works for us. From Nairobi, our team moved down to Botswana. We had Adventist hospital in Botswana. And you know, 90% of the babies that are born in that hospital do not have a father living at home at the time. Real problem. Real problem. We had 3 days of health education with the Parliament. We repeated the same sort of program we had up in Nairobi. 4 cabinet ministers were baptized as Seventh-day Adventists. We had a new church being built. We had a millionaire man, Adventist, from South Africa, up there, Botswana, building a new church in Freedom Square. I still remember that one cabinet minister came up screeching with his car, slammed on the brakes, came out, "You remember me? You remember me? Get this church built. We want to come and join it." They joined our church. You think the Lord's hand was in that? Away from Nairobi was a little village. There was a lady there who was the midwife. She delivered all the babies in the village. She had become Al Hanif, the Muslim way of saying Seventh-day Adventist. That's the worshiper of the one and only true God. And she was beginning to teach the young people that she had delivered. They were growing up now, older. But they soon discovered she wasn't teaching straight Muslim religion. They decided they'd assassinate her. So one night they came to her home, about 2 o'clock in the morning. They touched the gate. Now, there's no electricity in this village. They touched the gate. They got a shock. So they thought they would go over the wall. Not too high a wall. They could climb over it. Cement wall, brick wall. They touched the wall, got a shock. Pretty soon they decided they'd go back to the city and tell their parents what was going on. So it was about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. This lady came out to go to the outhouse. The whole city was standing in front of her yard. Whole city, everybody out there, thousands of people. She says, "What's going on?" "Well, what kind of electric magic do you have?" "I don't have any electric magic." She touched the wall, touched the gate. She didn't get a shock. So the leader of the village decided he'd try to touch the wall. He touched the wall. I got a shock, which shot him back 6 feet. He was injured. She finally figured it out. The Lord is doing something special. And she opened the gate, invited some of the young leaders and the older people in to explain what Al-Hanif was.